Hello there. I'm going to share with you a little system that I've been using for quite a few years that has helped me assess the balance in my life at any time. Now, this, as you can see, is a wheel. This is a wheel of life, and everybody has a wheel of life as a metaphorical construct to show the balance of every area that makes up this human experience. Now, ideally, we want to have a nice rolling wheel here so that it is very similar in each area. It's balanced. So if you have a look at a wheel, you can clearly see that if every area has the same approximate rating out of 10 in our life, then that wheel will form a nice circle and be able to roll around. So I love that metaphor there. So firstly, I've given you an example here of someone's life and how they've rated it. And we use this as a coaching tool all the time in coaching, life coaching, goal setting, etc., etc. Very, very useful tool. So let's have a look at each area first. We have self-love. Self-love, we have all understood how important it is that we value ourselves. And when we talk about valuing ourselves, we're not talking about what we do, what we achieve, what we create, but just the mere fact that we are a human being, not a human doing. We exist. And we, underneath all of our programming, we are pure, loving awareness, having a human experience. So when you can really grasp that concept, then you're probably going to have a higher rating of self-love in your life. So do you have a high regard for your own well-being? Not doing, being. This is the question to ask. And do you treat yourself with respect? So this is how you can gauge your rating out of 10 for self-love. Now, we also have on this wheel physical body. Physical body is a separate one because this is the avatar we've been given in this experience. It's important. It's our temple, as you would hear. So how do we feel about the way that we present to the world? How do we feel about the way we look? Are we satisfied? Are we dissatisfied? Ideally, we want to be detached from any kind of identity with the way we look, and it's not a matter of how we look that determines our self-love. So every part of this wheel is interlinked in some way. But we're all working towards this with our physical body and the way we look. Unfortunately, we've been brought up in a society that highly values the way someone looks. So how do you feel about your physical body out of 10? Secondly, your relationships. Your relationships form a huge part of this human experience. In fact, it makes up a lot of the growth, transformation, and healing that we get to go through because of relationship dynamics in our lives. So how are your relationships doing? So how is your relationship with yourself? That's the huge one. How do you feel about yourself? And when we really start to understand that we are a multidimensional being having a human experience, we start to highly value the mere fact that we exist here, and that relationship with ourselves improves. So how are your relationships with your family, your relationships with colleagues, with a significant other? These can all add up to how you rate out of 10 the way you feel about relationships in your life. Now, we also have fun and play. Fun and play is a huge part of life. It's the sacred in life. It's not all about survival. Yet many people neglect fun and play. They consider it a low priority, but it is equally as important as every other area in our lives. So how is the fun and play in your life? Are you getting enough fun and play? Are you making sure you have time for fun? Do you give yourself permission to play? This is a big one. Our inner child is often screaming for attention, wanting some time to have that innocence and awe where they just get to experience the senses and experience this world, this three-dimensional world fully, get to play in it. Have you given yourself enough time to do that? And are you laughing and creating joy regularly in your life? That's a really good determinant of if you've got a good balance of fun and play. How much time do you spend laughing and feeling joy in your heart? Then we have finances. Many people don't want to look at their finances, but finances are a direct correlation to the balance in our lives. So if we're neglecting or refusing to look at finances, or if we're over focusing on finances, we can cause a huge imbalance. So out of 10, how do you feel about where your financial experience is right now? And now the one thing I want to remind you here is that we do not compare, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but you don't, when we're talking about finances, we're not talking about comparing your bank account to someone else's. It's really to do with you, how you feel about your financial situation. Then we have health. Now, health is a separate part to physical body, because physical body really encapsulates the way we feel about how we present ourselves visually to the world. But health is a whole compartment of its own. How is your health? How is the balance of your body, mind, and spirit? How is the densest part of this experience, our body, what we've manifested and created through the mind and heart, this body here, this avatar? So how do you feel about your overall health and the condition of nutrition in your life? And is your body nourished and functioning in peak condition? Now, if you're neglecting your body, you can be sure that you're going to cause an imbalance in all areas of your life. So this is really important as well. This is why we talk about this in coaching. And then spirituality. Now, for a lot of people, spirituality is associated with religion. But I'm going to assume, because you're watching my channel, that you have the clear understanding that spirituality is a very personal experience. Spirituality is really about how you see and view the world, the kind of rituals that you integrate into your world that remind you that there's something bigger out there than just your small self, just this body and mind, that there is something bigger governing the experience here. And how you approach that is personal, and everyone's on a different journey, but all roads lead to God, all roads lead to the divine in the end. So it's really about self-seeking, something bigger than yourself. So how do you rate your spirituality? A lot of people know that they want to integrate meditation practices, journaling, prayer into their lives, but they neglect that, they procrastinate, they put it aside. And that's a whole nother video. But essentially, we need to remember we are pure loving awareness having a human experience, not the other way around. So spirituality, to me, is the forefront of balance in our lives. It's the opportunity to step out of the three-dimensional and be nourished by divine tools, wisdom, intuition, guidance, and intelligence, so that we can continue to flow in this life. And then finally, we have career or mission or purpose. Now, I like to look at it not as a job, but as a personal purpose. And when you're fully aligned in what you do for a living with how you feel fulfilled in your mission here as an experience, then you'll find congruence in your life. It becomes easy and effortless, and a beautiful flow in your life. So how do you feel about your mission on this earth, your career choices? How aligned are you in those choices? Are they really where you want to be? And who told you to work towards that particular career? Is that something from within, from your heart, or is that something from without, an external force, some external value that isn't really yours? So what's governing your choice in career and your progression in your career? And then you can rate that out of 10. So this gives you a beautiful idea of where you're at in terms of balance. Very, very quickly, very visually, you can see very quickly this breakdown of what's working and what's not. Now, ideally, we want to focus on, once we've done that, we want to focus on the weakest link, the lowest rating, because this is where the chain breaks, so to speak, the weakest link. And this is the area that can cause all sorts of problems for every other area of your life. And so the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We need to focus on the weakest links first. not the strongest areas continuing. We need, that's great. That sounds like it's in balance, but the weakest area. So let's look at the rating here that I've given as this make-believe woman called Samantha, let's say. So she's put her ratings here. We're going to have a quick assessment of those so you can get an idea of how you can assess your ratings. So before I begin, though, we need to be aware that when we're assessing balance, it's not comparing to someone else, as I mentioned before. We all have our own unique set of values, and I've talked about this before. Our values are what is important to us, what we deem as our deepest needs. Now, we can either be accessing values that were passed down through our family that are actually not really in alignment with us, or we can reassess what our true values are by asking ourselves, what is the most important thing to me in my entire life? And then after that, and then after that, and then after that. So you can get a few of your top values in hierarchical order and make sure that your goals are aligned with those values. Otherwise, you're going to have all sorts of struggles. So it's most important to remember that the score you give yourself is completely personal and independent of anyone else in your life. And you must remember that it's impossible to compare, knowing that we all have our own unique set of filters, a lens to see the world based on our experiences, our values, and our beliefs of what's possible. Okay, so do not compare. Now, what one person may find successful, another person may feel is not enough. So it's a personal gauge, a personal measurement, nothing to do with anyone else. So what one may consider a lot of money, for example, another may consider small change. And comparing is a bottomless hole. I think I can hone that in here now. So comparing is not going to work. It's part of the old 3D system of living and being. It leads to struggle. It leads to pain. It leads to separation, which is ultimately fear. It's the furthest you can get from truth is comparing to someone else's life. Just misery. It's going to lead you to misery. So enough comparing. It's personal. Okay. So the idea for a balanced wheel is each part has approximately the same score so that that wheel can spin smoothly along, if you imagine that spinning. Now, this could be a 7 out of 10 for all areas, and that'll be perfect. Okay, it's not about comparing the score you have. It's about helping yourself see balance. So the example. Now, Samantha's lowest score, her weakest links are both self-love and health. Okay, so her next lowest score is physical body. The way she feels about her body is how it's presented to the world. And then meanwhile, Sam is thriving in relationships and thriving in her career mission and finance and fun and play. So she's doing well in those areas. Now, we might assume that Sam that highly values her career, her friends, and making money, potentially at the expense of self-love and health and physical body. And this often happens. So when we focus and obsess too much about certain areas of our life and not enough about other areas, we're going to find imbalance. And so once Sam has identified her immediate focus areas, which are the weakest links, she can then set goals. So goals will bring her score up to improve the balance in her life. Now, this is a whole nother video I could do about goals and goal setting. I'm sure you're familiar with goal setting. But essentially, what I really wanted to share with you today is that we really need to shine a light on every area of our lives and start to focus in on the areas we've neglected. Because those shadows areas, because we're not looking at them, they become shadows, will continue to cause problems underneath the surface of your life. And just as shadows in our lives, we repress, what resists persists. So we must look at every area honestly. We must look at every area transparently and be honest with ourselves here. And so I urge you today, look at your life and assess how you're doing. And so you can see where you can improve. And of course, being a spiritual person, I would encourage you, once you see your lowest areas, go into meditation and prayer and ask for help. ask for the strength and resilience and tools and discernment and means to improve that area of your life. And I'm sure it will. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and have a beautiful day. See ya.